Hello and welcome. Today we will talk about Chapter 2, Diversity Management in Academia. Chapter 2 provides diversity management example in the academic environment. The reason I chose to discuss diversity in academic environments is because diversity is applicable in every profession, in every field, and in every workplace. I chose to apply it because 30 years ago when I transitioned into the academic environment, there were many students that used to talk to me about the fact that they were discriminated against either by staff, by faculty, or by other students in the classroom. So just because a person has a PhD and has written many textbooks does not mean that he or she does not have any biases or stereotypes as a result of his or her socialization in society. Hopefully in the academic environments, we are fair and equitable to all of our students, colleagues, and bosses and superiors and other stakeholders in the community. But nonetheless, we fall into the same trap as everybody else with regards to misinformation and disinformation in society. So we need to conduct workshops, training regarding diversity, equity, and inclusionary practices. So to summarize so far our understanding of diversity, so we can all have a common definition of what we mean by diversity, and the fact that diversity is not just about me because I'm a male, or a person who's a female might assume that diversity is about him or her, or a person who is Muslim or Jewish might think of diversity in terms of religion. So we need to have a common understanding of what diversity really means. In chapter 1 in the textbook, it was mentioned that diversity describes all of the personal, the professional, and the cultural characteristics and qualities that make one person similar to or different from another individual. So diversity is an inclusive concept. It includes all of the characteristics that make us unique human beings in society. In other words, diversity is inclusive of our age, our skin color, our religion, our generational differences, our experiences, our profession, the way we were brought up, where we were brought up, languages we speak, our sexual orientation, and many other dimensions would fall under this definition of diversity. Some of those dimensions make you similar to another individual because you have those dimensions in common. But others would make you different from other individuals because you don't share the same concepts or dimensions as others. Professors Harvey and ILEAD mentioned that diversity is seen as social identities that can affect workplace interaction and require new ways of interacting among individuals and groups and systemic changes in the ways that organizations function. So diversity is applied in the context of organizational issues such as an academic environment or the health profession or the retail industry or the automotive industry and so on. Diversity is an inclusive definition to include everyone. Professors Harvey and ILEAD also mentioned that it's important to understand different terminologies that are included in such as social identity theory, which is a term used to describe how people define themselves in terms of individual importance of their sociocultural categories. Oppression theory holds that in every society there are certain constraints, often unconscious in terms of social inequality in group memberships, that shape a person's life choices. Prejudice is an attitude, usually with negative feelings, that involves a prejudgment about members of a specific group. Stereotypes are formed when we ascribe generalizations to people based on their group identities and the tendencies of the whole group rather than seeing a person as an individual who may or may not have these specific tendencies. I also like Ralph Waldo Emerson's statement regarding what is success. He said success is to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends. to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is the definition of success. This is why it's so important for all of us to make sure our thinking, our feeling, and our behavior are aligned and consistent. I also like Earl Nightingale's definition of success, where he says success is the progressive realization of worthwhile and predetermined goals. Success means achieving one's goals, therefore, it means different things to different people and is individually defined. When it comes to the context of diversity, it's not your job as a manager to determine where specific groups of employees might be successful. So everyone should be provided equal opportunities to be as successful as they can be or as successful as they would like to be in their professions. So we need to create an inclusionary work environment, and that would be very different from exclusionary workplaces. In inclusion, the workers' feelings of being accepted and included by their colleagues are apparent. So this refers to one's perception that they are appreciated by others in their group. Exclusion is the degree to which a worker experiences being excluded from important decisions that impact his or her well-being, or even being ignored by his or her colleagues in the group. In the academic environment, we need to create an inclusive learning environment for everyone, because differences may exist in how male and female students relate to and understand material presented in the classroom. For example, using sports analogies to make a point in a classroom may not clarify the concepts or objectives to those who are not familiar with the rules of the specific game. So this can apply to both males and females in the same way. Have you ever had professors, for example, that talk about American football or the soccer games, and they relate leadership concepts into teamwork within each of those sports? Now, if we don't know the rules in those sports, then it could be a problem for us. So faculty members need to be aware of their audience and create an inclusive learning environment. An inclusive learning environment is where all students and all learners are actively engaged, they're actively involved in the learning process. They have equal access to the resources available for them, and they can fully relate to the concepts being presented. An inclusive culture exists where members of each group can be heterogeneous. In other words, they can be diverse in many dimensions, and together they create a distinctive competitive advantage through teamwork and their unique cultural knowledge. So hopefully students in the academic environment are also able to create inclusive teams where they can perform much better as members of the group compared to their own individual performance. Diversity reinforces the idea of casting a token minority to diversify a project and does not always signify actual change. However, inclusion articulates what we really want to be, that is included in the decisions that impact our jobs. Is to have a seat at the table where the decisions are being made with everyone's input and voices being heard, understood, and taken into consideration in the final decision-making process. Recognizing and understanding personal and professional differences in the student body are neither easy nor automatic, since they require conscious focus and a good level of comfort on the part of the faculty with cultural diversity issues. In order for educators and students to be successful, they need to become culturally competent so they can function effectively in the context of cultural differences among their teams, in their classes, and eventually in the workplace as well. Educators need to encourage students to think critically, to add value to the class by participating, by being engaged, and to synergize as teams or as a whole class. Appreciating, understanding, and valuing personal differences in each individual student or team member can eliminate the concept of groupthink both in the classroom as well as in the boardroom. Groupthink is a pattern of faulty and biased decision making, which often occurs in groups whose members strive for agreement among themselves, often at the expense of accurately assessing information that is relevant to a decision. Groupthink is usually not desirable when we are aiming for innovation, for creativity, and for outperforming the competition in today's complex environment. Synergy is our goal. Diverse teams can achieve synergistic results if they appreciate, if they understand, and if they value their differences effectively. So synergy is where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Ultimately, synergy is the performance gains that result when individuals, teams, and departments coordinate their actions toward the same goals. Synergistic teams, colleagues, peers, and departments tend to function more cooperatively and more productively than if they were operating in isolation all by themselves. We also need to understand the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy or the Pygmalion effect. Think about how the expectations of others actually impact our own expectations and where we actually aim. So the definition of Pygmalion effect is the enhanced learning or performance that results from others having positive expectations of us. Do you allow others' negativity to impact or influence your decisions? If you do, then that is called the golem effect. So someone's expectations about another causes the individual to behave in a manner often that is consistent with those expectations. So the positive case is known as the Pygmalion effect or self-fulfilling prophecy. The negative side is called the golem effect. So as we learn from the concept of the Pygmalion effect or self-fulfilling prophecy, sometimes we can be driven based on the expectations of others. What is important to note is that as children, we don't have much control over our programming, and we may receive negative or even stereotypical information about others who are different from us. However, as adults, we have control over our behavior, and therefore we are 100% responsible for our behaviors in changing misinformation and stereotypical information that we have received in the past. This way, we don't pass on misinformation or stereotypes to others. And also, our behavior can be hopefully based on factual evidence and not based on prejudices or stereotypes that we receive as children. We can apply the true model when we are faced with complex dilemmas regarding diversity in the workplace. True model for diversity management goes with the assumption that we are not always going to be able to understand or agree on every element of what goes on in society. However, at the minimum, we need to tolerate differences, and then we need to respect differences, understand differences, and ultimately we can examine and explore appropriate options based on understanding and based on facts. Diversity exists in today's workplaces as well as in academic and educational arenas, and it will continue to increase at a growing rate. So there's a moral responsibility for every one of us at a minimum to be a true inclusionary manager in the workplace. Valuing diversity and thereby becoming a true diversity champion requires each person to tolerate differences, to respect differences, to understand differences, and then to examine our differences in order to maximize the productivity of the workforce and gain organizational competitiveness. Someone once said that we're led to believe a lie when we see with and not through the eye. That means going above and beyond what we see based on first look, to think about the facts, think about the biases, and think about the information and misinformation that we associate this person with based on his or her dimension of diversity. Equity and inclusionary practices, we can make diversity an advantage for ourselves, for our teams, and for our organizations. It's ultimately about doing what is right. Someone said that when I die, I shall soar with the angels. But if I die an angel, you cannot imagine what I will become. Become the best you can be through equitable and inclusionary practices. Good luck.